Welcome to Being Confident from Within with Natalie Potts, the podcast that shares what it really takes to be confident. I'm passionate about helping people grow businesses with confidence. Does it seem like everyone around you is naturally confident and sure of themselves? Well, the chances are they have self-doubts just like you. I'm in conversations with inspiring individuals to share what confidence means to them and to help you find ways to believe in yourself and create confidence at any time. Gus, welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you so much for your time today. I'm super excited to have you.
Are you? Are you really super excited? Because I'm excited. Because I am excited.
I'm excited with a 10% tad of what's he going to say.
I'll try my best to make sure that this is articulate, affluent, motivational, supporting, and everything that we need it to be, with a hint of challenge.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I didn't expect that, obviously. Share with listeners all about yourself, please.
Well, I am Gus, also known as RGL Filmhouse. I am a business coach for videographers based in fitness, bodybuilding, and strength sports. So after 7 years of being a videographer myself, about nearly 2 years ago, transitioned into the business coaching arena. So now my entire MO is helping take fitness videographers from where they are to where they want to be.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And as
that's how we met, actually, on the videography scene.
Yeah, I was
when I was filming one of your 1900 seminars that you visit yearly.
I was sharing with someone today about I've got you on a podcast. I've got you. I was saying about we've only actually met once. I said you just completely always voice notes me every other week. But no, I did say it was at Mark Coles's event, wasn't it? And I got filmed and I never used it.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure it was used. It probably would have been used on the M10 website though, because as we know, Coles was one of the kind of most first-time successful coaches in the kind of fitness arena in UK.
Yeah.
So he had all his funnels set up pretty perfectly. Oh no, absolutely, 1000% used it, but you might not have seen it because it would have been buried in the M10 website somewhere. But ever since then, or ever since kind of recently, I think you've been my WhatsApp wife and I've been your WhatsApp husband. You know, you've got a work wife and a work husband. We're just that, except on WhatsApp.
Very true. It's very true. That's why you're going to fly me out to Dubai when you go.
That's it.
So look, we're focusing on confidence today. So share with me what confidence means to you.
I do a lot of work in the men's work environments. So my kind of life is a balance of business development and emotional development. And it means different things in the same thing in arenas. Kind of like a long-winded way of me biding time till I really think about giving you a solid answer on this one. Yeah. Confidence in business, to me, confidence is two things: education and failing. I really think that is the two absolute confidence builders in business: education and failing. And the number one word I've had from all of my clients is the confidence that they have, knowing that they've got a supporter, a champion, someone walking with them shoulder to shoulder through building their business, through the anxieties, the stresses. So education takes a lot of that gray cloud away from the lack of knowledge that we have, which in turn helps us with a little bit of confidence because we feel that we're backed up when we've got tools in our tool belt. Failing, though, is very, very important. Making sure that you have all of those arguments, all of those pricing discussions, all of those boundary setting discussions with clients or with people that you normally have anxiety around. And if it fails, or if you fail to close, if you fail to sell, if you fail to succeed, is going, right, cool, I messed that one up, let's move on to the next one. I think the confidence really comes from, education and failing. Failing is a part of that big problem solving. And a lot of people have said it about business before, that all it is problem solving. You solve one, solve the next one, solve that, solve the next one. And then if you solve enough, you eventually get to some arena where you're like, I don't have as many problems as I used to have. I found that confidence creeps up on you. You don't know you're confident until you have that conversation with a client that makes them go, shit, this guy knows what he's talking about. And then you're like, shit, I know what I'm talking about. I didn't know I knew what I was talking about. Kind of just blagging it up until now, that style of thing. As for the emotional arena, though, confidence is boundary setting. And am I allowed to swear?
You're always allowed to swear.
Confidence is boundary setting and learning how to be unfuckwithable, not letting other people take pieces of who you are just because of your emotional impotence. I've actually got a quote on my phone from Gandhi. Can I tell you? It's actually quite a good one.
Yeah, go for it. I love Gandhi.
It is confidence, right? And this is a really interesting thing with the men's work and stuff that I do, is that in developmental circles, we're always taught to be positive. And I'm like, okay, so where's the negative talk? So when negativity comes around, people don't know how to deal with it confidently.
Yeah.
So for me, I think light is perfectly balanced by dark. I think negative needs to be there. I think things like this quote, for instance, violence needs to be there to a certain extent. And the quote is, it is better to be violent if there is violence in our hearts than to put on the cloak of non-violence to cover impotence. Violence is any day preferable to impotence. There is hope for a violent man to become non-violent. There is no such hope for the impotent. So if you ain't confident, get confident and get confident real quick. A lot of our lack of confidence is, our feelings of being very, our inner doubts and inability to deal with people, situations, business, relationship numbers, whatever the hell it happens to be. So does that answer your question in a relatively expansive way?
Yeah, it's interesting to come onto the point around where you shared about the emotional side too. And I think the most important thing for me resonating a lot is this idea of boundaries. Something I've struggled with and been working on definitely the last few months in terms of, I guess, I'm not very big on being able to balance life and work easily. And then I think, well, I don't need to. And I think that what I've seen is
because your entire life is work, Natalie Potts.
I think
you don't need to balance it. You balanced it perfectly, 100% or something. That's perfect balance.
It's true. But this idea that I need boundaries, looking at it, understanding it more, thinking about it, reflecting on where I have it, etc. It's definitely a challenge professionally and personally for me, and just exploring kind of what that means. How can people, if they're struggling with boundaries, how can they focus on really facing into it and understanding it, what it means to them, and putting in the right boundaries to serve them?
It took me a long time, a hell of a long time. And I think my inner confidence with boundaries came from actually walking away from a woman that I was in love with. So don't get it twisted. I've not been confident since I was a kid. I'm not some expert in confidence. But the true confidence around boundaries came from, I am no longer accepting this in my life. And I know that I have been fair and just and righteous. And I have been a good man in this. And the failings are not on my side. So that kind of inner belief and self-love to know that you are the fair and just one, etc., etc., that is a confidence builder in itself. And then to further that by actually getting rid of the relationships that don't serve you, the people that, I don't like cliches, not serve you, but get rid of the relationships that are less advantageous and are sucking a lot of your life. That was my biggest confidence builder. So a boundary, that's the funny thing, is we talk about boundaries in a very micro scale daily. A boundary is like, oh, don't call me that. Don't address me as that. A boundary is, oh, I'm not comfortable with you doing that, so don't do it. My boundaries are, you're a piece of shit. Don't ever speak to me again. That's my boundaries. I think that when you attain that kind of confidence in who you are, people get that from you, and they don't test any boundaries that they think could or couldn't be there, because they automatically have a little bit of a higher value of respect for you because you present yourself well. So my boundary setting is actually a lot is quite dialed up from what most people's boundary setting is, because I boundary set on the macro, meaning, yeah, it's cool that we've been best friends for 3 or 4 years, but take care. I'll see you later. What do you mean take care? Well, take care. You're a very different value driven person than me, and you're not advantageous to have in my life anymore. You're quite obnoxious. You're quite narcissistic. You're kind of only looking out for yourself in our friendship. I'm going to explain that to you, and then I'm going to leave and I'm going to continue on with my life. But even there, that's a massive confidence builder, is being able to admit when something isn't actually right and walking away from it. That confidence builders the hard conversations with clients, with people that you're trying to close, with people that are trying to close you, with relationships, like your parents. Confidence often starts at home, actually going back to all the issues from 20, 30, 40 years ago and going over them. Big confidence builders there. So you can start building the confidence on a personal basis with yourself and your immediate relationship. And then over time, that starts to bleed into your professional environments as well, because it's a part of who you are. It's kind of like that groundwork, training yourself for hard conversations.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you think it's something that, like, it's knowing yourself comes from over time, etc., but is it something that is something we're born with? Do you think a little bit in terms of how we are? I had this conversation with a couple of people recently. One of them was like, no, and then recently, a very good friend of mine, actually, he was like, we're all very different in certain things, and actually, yeah, some of it probably is where we're born as well. And I just thought it was really interesting. Maybe there's no right and wrong on it. Maybe there's no answer to this. It's just exploring it and understanding different perspectives on it, because it can't just be based on environment and influences of our parents and our childhood that dictates our beliefs and dictates our ways of being.
That's an expansive one to say. Does confidence does it massively stems from knowing who you are, and it's always different to have these conversations with me because I've kind of been on my own since I was a kid. My family fractured when I was about 7, and that was it. No looking back. So I was the very clean cut case of Goodwill Hunting, like the relatively intelligent but very very traumatized kid that just kind of came up the ranks of life themselves. So that builds two issues. It builds an issue where you think that you're the only right, and it builds the other issue of not being able to listen to people when they tell you no, you're not right, because you've not had other people in your life to love or nourish or help you gauge the difference between right or wrong.
Yeah.
So you kind of grow up quite hard-headed. But then the benefits of it is that you don't get mollycoddled by other people imprinting on you. The world shows you what it is, and then you have to navigate it by yourself from childhood. So knowing yourself, for me, comes a lot from that, a lot from, coming up the ranks of life just solo, having to figure it out. It's interesting we're having this conversation because I talked to a very good friend of mine about this the other day, actually, Daniel. And I've been helping Daniel out and a number of people just over the years with a lot of different things. And specifically, my good friend Daniel, he's going through a lot with like land and building house and relationship and new kid and business and all these different things. So it seems like every 3 or 4 days he's in my DMs going, Gus, could you help me with something? And I'm like, buddy, anything you want. And then I was standing in his house the other day helping him with shelving and shit. And I said, mate, I'm sure I'm sure I'm gonna ask you for help soon. And he was like, I really hope you do, Gus, because you've never asked me for help since I've known you. And then that actually got me thinking that apart from like maybe my oldest best friend from when I was 18 or 19, if ever getting a tight spot with cash or something, she's always there to help out. But that's like my sister, like the original OG best friend that I've got.
Yeah.
Is that I realized that I've never had help ever. I've never asked someone for help. Never, to do with anything. And it's not from saying I don't need help, because I've known since I was a kid I've needed crippling, soul destroying amounts of help.
Yeah.
But it's from just being brought up with this whole I need to figure this out myself type thing.
Yeah.
where you know that asking for help could probably be done, but you don't have enough people to ask for help. So then B, you're very, very used to never having it as a child and growing up. So you don't jump to that as your first resolve for a problem. Your first resolve for a problem is, cool, here's the next thing that I need to figure out solo. So yeah, that's been a big confidence builder as well. Getting rid of your crutches, getting rid of these crutches of people and friends and family where love isn't, the world isn't full of love, man. So if your life is full of nothing but love, and I've had relationships like this where I've been in a relationship with someone who has been one of the most incredible people I've ever known. But when you ask them who they are, they don't know what even the question means. Or when you challenge them with a healthy conversation, they just shut down like a teenager because they don't know how to handle these conversations. And it's because they were brought up with a great mum, great dad, great sisters, great brothers, had a great career right out of school, have traveled the world, have done all this shit, but have never actually been tested.
Yeah.
So their confidence comes from enthusiasm and being traveled and learning how to talk, but it doesn't come from trial and error.
And that goes back to that failing part.
Exactly, yeah. It's incredible how too much of a good thing really, really is a failing for a lot of people, because we deprive ourselves of some of the most important lessons you're ever going to come across, like finding out. I've always said you do not know who someone is until their back's against the wall. You don't know who someone is until their back's against the wall. That's when you find out what someone's really made of. So when you're sitting there trying to have these relatively important, mature conversations with someone who's a friend or family or someone you're in love with, and they're just sitting there acting as if they're getting shouted at by the head teacher, you're like, right, okay, that's fine that you're like that, but it's very different from me. And I need to know that the person I'm with is going to be able to have even the most basic conversations around, simple things like, I don't think it's really cool, like the way that that person talks to you is very kind of controlling, and is there something between you and that person that I need to know about because you're introducing me to them and they're acting as if they own you? And then straight away it's like, oh, I don't know what you mean, and all these weird kind of shutdowns. And then you realize, right, okay, so you don't know the dynamics of relationships and conversation and how to basically achieve or resolve in a conversation. So you just shut down. In business, it happens regularly as well, getting challenged by clients or clients disagreeing to prices, disagreeing to, oh no, I'm not paying that. And the lack of confidence is because you've never had to go through the rigors of sales or the rigors of actually communicating value and process to people. So as soon as someone gives you a bit of resistance, you just kind of shut down.
Yeah.
So it's the same across the board. It just kind of highlights itself in different ways.
Yeah. It's interesting what you mentioned around this idea of the kind of the enthusiasm of that confidence. Is that not more than it's an interesting one, because I can see it and I can see it in people, but and if I think of certain people with that, underneath all of that, they're completely not confident at all. It's just a perceived persona that's put out to the world that's
if in doubt,
bollocks. And it's crap. And so that's not true confidence. It's almost their ego, etc., isn't it? Or it just is. That's not true natural. And I have this idea sometimes natural confidence that it's just from within, but I don't see that in people like that, and it's fake. And that's that idea of fake. You make it almost come into true transparency too much.
If in doubt, be positive. That's kind of what it is. And the times that I've seen that is actually really in the spiritual community quite a lot, where you get all these people that are full of, yeah, man, life is just good vibes, man, good energies, good vibes, and all that shit. And they've got tapestries with fairy lights in their bedrooms, and they talk to their plants as if their plants are their children. And I'm like, I guarantee I've got more plants than you do, sweetheart. B, your tapestry is the same as every other chick's bedroom I've been in, so calm down. And it's like this. It's almost like this wanting ignorance of the realities of the world, because the realities of the world don't fit with the fairy tale that you believe it is. And like one of my most hated words is manifesting. I think the secret is the worst book that could ever be delivered to the population, because all it's done is create an army of insecure Instagrammers that think they've got a piece of the personal development puzzle, when really it's teaching people just to have their head in the clouds more, and it's not teaching them to face the reasons why they've not achieved something, to just believe. Actually, I shouldn't actually advertise another podcast while I'm on yours, but if I may, it's quite important, this one, because this just happened recently. The podcast, Chris Williams' podcast, Modern Wisdom, he literally was talking about this on a recent podcast, and I'm trying to find out. I'm just looking at my phone just now at exactly which one it could be, but I love it. I love it when my, not melancholy, but I love it when my serious attitude is well received by people. So when I hear professionals be like, positivity's bullshit, I'm like, yes, finally. I feel that I can say these things, because usually I'm the person in the development circle that is, I call myself the 10th man.
Yeah.
And the 10th man in politics is, if you have a group of 10 men and 9 come to the same conclusion, it is the duty of the 10th man to disagree and challenge all other 9 until you find a hole in all the other 9 people's agreements. And if you don't find a hole, then you know that the 9 people are true and just in what their agreement is. So the 10th man is basically supposed to be the thorn in the side. The 10th man is supposed to be the challenge to go against the grain of what this normal conception of something is. And it happens when I'm at my men's circles, is all of these guys agree on certain things. And I'm like, are you all fucking serious? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, what are you talking about, Gus? And this is why I try my best not to speak at the circles anymore, because they've actually staying silent at the circles for me has actually helped me be very, very present with other men and what they're talking about. And I realized that my ego and my own being impressed with my emotional intelligence and all this shit, what I was waiting for was just my turn to speak, or I was waiting for my turn to coach, or I was waiting for my turn to say, "Oh, come with me, and I'll walk you through the problems that you're having that you just shared with the group." So when I stopped doing that, it brought me a lot more peace, just a lot more compassion, and I can truly exist with men whilst they're talking about going through their issues. So now I'm battling between that new peace and presence, and still deep down to my bones being the 10th man that is like, I've been through everything that you're talking about, guys, and I massively disagree with how passive you're being with what this situation is, because you're not identifying the cause of why you're having these, for instance, let's just say relationship issues. And I've watched 6 or 7 guys talk about, yeah, maybe you should do this with your girlfriend, and maybe you should do that, and you should always make sure that you lead with a really compassionate foot, and always sit down and talk together and be loving. And I'm like, just pack her stuff and throw it out. Like, ask her for the key back, tell her to go on her own way. The very fiber of that human being is causing these issues, and all you're going to do is waste the next 5 years of your life trying to make a square peg fit a round hole, because you believe in positivity, when positivity doesn't change the very DNA of who your partner is, which is bratty, narcissistic, attention seeking, comes from a totally different background than yours. And just because she's got a strong feminine input in your life, that triggers a maternal reception from you, and you feel received in a maternal type of energy, and then you fell in love with that. But I can see all these things for what they are, and I'm like, no, you're all just, it's almost like this cultish, yay, positivity, PMA, manifest. And I'm like, no, just have the confidence, make the right decision, get rid of the people you need to get rid of, and retain that win for yourself. Gain the confidence for yourself that you made the right decision around the things that you should have made the right decision around. So yeah, a bit of an instigator, I suppose.
Do you not think though that the manner of what on the act of just doing that though, of as you shared earlier in terms of taking people out and the boundaries, knowing what you stand for and removing the people that suck life from you, like you just shared there, give her a key, off you go. You create that world around you where it is just Gus's world, positive and what you want, ironically, because any negativity coming at you, like move it aside, take it out.
Oh no. The exact opposite. It's taken me 35 years to get to the ability to go to say the word no and
Right,
know that I'm saying the word
right,
no for the right reason. So
right.
my entire life has been trial and error. my
Yeah.
my entire life has been trial and error. Um, I can tick almost every single box of emotional development and spirituality, all the sessions and therapies and group sessions and meditations and mushrooms and everything that you want to do. And it's all actually led me to further understanding that I am allowed to be the way that I am instead of having to adopt this overall, I don't know what the hell we want to call it, a PMA, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then the other interesting thing, I talked about this in a podcast with a good friend of mine, Mikey, is that there's also an element of me that I don't know if I'd say, okay, I'm just going to say it. There's almost an element of me that's got a little bit of an emotional PTSD, but it's because I've experienced the true hiatuses that most people haven't. I've
Yeah.
experienced love that will absolutely move your earth. I've experienced the loss of the people that are your absolute closest and immediates. I've experienced what it really, really is to have your soul connected to another human being that's 20,000 miles away. And for you to feel sad when they're going through something and you didn't know they were going through anything, but for some reason there's an energy that shifted within you. I know what it's like to sit and to meditate on the universe and the very depths of our DNA. Like you name these things, this is part of my life, and it's brought me so much balance between the very previous hard-headed person that I was, who carried a lot of resentment, a lot of bitterness, and actually allowing a lot of that to serve me because now it's turned into actually very strong values. I never just cancel things out. Like, let me be clear, everything that I've talked about just now is previous best friends, previous relationships, previous clients, clients that I was making 30, 40, 50K a year from, where I've just had to admit and say, this is not in line with my values as a person.
Mm.
And this is not going to go the way that we want it to. So I'm going to walk away from this just now. And in my opinion, the only thing more, if you take love, for instance, the only thing more powerful than falling in love is walking away from it. And it's something that very, very few people ever get to experience.
Yeah.
So for me to say emotional PTSD, that's just a kind of tongue-in-cheek way that I like to describe it. And you know how where someone in the army won't have a problem talking about death and killing people and things like that. I don't have a problem talking about love and loss and life,
Yeah.
um, because I don't talk about things that I haven't experienced.
Yeah.
So for me, because I've been through incredible friendships, I've got people that have been with me for 15, 16 years, would give me the shirt off their back without me even asking for it. And I've experienced losing the people that are your heroes that you truly love. I've experienced the love that I truly thought was going to be me until I was old and grey. And still, to a certain extent, that's always going to be with me. But
Mm.
because I've experienced these things, it gives me a lot more of an ability just to be by myself and not to worry about all the other things. Basically, just not seek, if you know what I'm saying. And with that comes a lot more of a sense of belief and content within yourself, where you don't seek, you don't constantly need the externals, you don't need the next relationship, you don't need the next love or the next friend. Or I think for me, the only thing that I do nowadays is move on to the next seminar or the next audio book or the next meditation or the next traveling or something like that. So yeah, for me, there's a lot of, I've experienced it, and because I have, I feel like I'd happily die not experiencing it again because
Mm.
it had such a magnitude in my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's lots of in that. What I'm drawing, and I always there is loads of in that, isn't there? I think what you come to a bit towards the end there was this idea of experience, and for me, confidence. sits around a lot around knowledge and experience, and then also a lot around belief, not just belief internally in that own self-validation, but sometimes you need that belief from others that see potential in you that maybe you don't. But then almost that's saying that you need validation from other people, right? But
Yeah.
it's interesting, isn't it? And this is where I love, like, it's like one bloody word can have so much conversation to it. And actually what I've loved about the people that have been on the podcast just talking about confidence is that they're people that are open-minded with it. It's not, it's this and it's right or wrong. They're open to, I actually didn't see it that way, in different perspectives.
Oh, so many pieces to the puzzle. So
Yeah.
many pieces to one thing that actually might be a good thing to mention is I do what's called a gun to the head moment.
Yeah.
And I don't take long to decide things. Like,
Right.
when your life is always in a stage of development, you're always primed to make good decisions.
Yeah.
So every single day, you and I are very, very similar. Every day is consumption, development, learning, but then you balance that out with love, compassion, meditation, relaxing, whatever it happens to be. So you're constantly priming your brain so that it starts to know itself better. It starts to get more confident, so that when a decision comes around, you're no longer paralyzed by the anxiety of that decision, and you
Yeah.
can make a decision relatively quick. So
Yeah.
what I started doing was having what I call a gun to the head moment. And I would hold my fingers up to my head, and then I would count to three. And as soon as I would pull the trigger on that gun, I would say whatever word came to my brain, which was a yes or a no,
Right.
because that's what your decision is going to end in, a yes or a no. And it's kind of like the same as when someone pushes you into a corner and shouts at you, and they're like, "Come on, tell me, make the decision, make the decision." And you get so stressed that you just shout out a word, but you know that because that word came from the deep, that it is the real answer,
Yeah.
and not the answer if you waited 2 weeks full of anxiety to make the decision. So that's helped me walk away from clients' relationships. It's also helped me secure some of the biggest things that have happened in my business, where I'm sitting there going, I can't send away an invoice for £12,500. That is stupid. Who the hell do I think I am? And then I look at it with my phone, my thumb held over send, and then I put a gun to my head, and I'm like, 1, 2, 3, fire. And as soon as you just send it and it's gone, what's the worst that's going to fucking happen, man?
But that
You're alive. Be thankful you're alive. What's the worst?
Yeah. I've not shared this before, I don't think, with people, but I do similar in that way. And I think sometimes it sounds a bit balmy, but I always remember, I think it's a Steve Jobs, where he said, imagine like it's the last 24 hours, would you do what you're about to do today? And of course we can't all go and party, drink gin, do whatever we want to do or whatever. But I do have these moments when I come up against things, and I will ask myself, I will put myself in that position of, if today's the last fucking day, what am I going to do? Just go with it, just make a decision. That's like you said, it's when we are priming our brains in that way, making decisions. Key. But all of that and what you shared there comes from surely an absolute trust in yourself.
Exactly. So the biggest decisions for me have been walking away from someone that I was in love with, walking away from best friends as well that I love deeply, because I know that our values are massively out of line. And I know that either I'm the wrong person for them or they're the wrong person for me, whatever it happens to be. But yeah, it comes from an unyielding sense of fair is fair. And I'm no longer led by my issues or my resentments, but then vice versa. I'm not led by this bullshit manifesting positive mental attitude. I'm led by the beautiful middle ground of righteous intent that is really the only just and true thing in the world.
It's interesting. I noticed that when I was in my corporate job, I was always really confident, and that was 19 years in a place, you're going to have good experience of people and you have knowledge of everything. I'd work my way from the bottom to the top. I could look at something and say it's wrong, but I then was realized that, like, if you'd said you got to go in front of a boardroom and talk tomorrow, or you got to do it in 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, fine, what I've got to talk about, I'll do it. It wouldn't fear me. And I was that person, like we said earlier, but that There's a great book by Adam Grant called Originals that I have to challenge everything, or whatever you tell me to do, I'll do the opposite. And and it's frustrating. But
Yeah, that sounds like you. Yep, yep. That sounds
doing
like
my
you,
own business, I'm like, I don't, at the first I was a bit like,
that.
can I be that, self, that assured like I was in corporate? And I've had to really challenge myself on that yeah, I can be, but I've had a bit of fear that it's like you lose people, or like I said earlier, I think I was sharing it, am I going too hard on people because people just can't take the fact that I'm saying own it, take accountability. Actually, you're going to get challenged in the right. I'm there for you 100% and I believe in you, but I'm going to challenge the hell out of you. And people just are we live in a society, especially in the UK, where they're so fucking sensitive to everything and everything. And I struggle at that. And I just think I get scared sometimes going so intent on know it, because I do know myself and I have strong awareness, and I think it's not cocky to say that I do have that, but I'm open-minded to that. I'm continually growing with that. I'm not perfect,
Yeah,
but actually
1000%.
trust it and fucking run with it as well. But I do fear that I turn people away from that and push a lot, and I think I sometimes just think, do you know what, I'm just going to run with it now, sod it.
One interesting thing that I've said to you a few times is the emotional development work that you would do is the biggest internal challenge, because for you, most of your life's challenges have been external because you've been in such high pressure environments.
Yeah.
You always have to perform. There's the balance of masculine and feminine, which one needs deployed, which one needs suppressed for me to get through whatever this is. For you, it's femininity that gets suppressed a lot of the times.
Yeah.
And I find in the men's work, the men's work is more intentional femininity, and then underlying challenging masculinity. So for instance, when men go into different arenas to do men's work, you'll find that it's a lot about love, communication, compassion, basically taking off the armor, taking off the bullshit that men have usually subjected themselves to through a number of different things that have happened over their lives that they've never dealt with. With women, it's usually things that have happened to them that they've never dealt with. With men, it's a lot of things that they've unknowingly created for themselves based on who they think they're supposed to be. So the men's work starts off very feminine, but when you get into real men's work, that's where it turns masculine, where you'll end up in a group, say like a group of, I don't know, 20, 30 dudes, and you might have clothes on, you might be butt ass naked, you might have just finished half an hour of wrestling and confrontational work and screaming and drums, and then you have to stand in front of a partner for like 5 minutes with your hand on their heart and stare them dead in the fucking eye for 5 minutes until a bell goes, and then you move on to the next guy and you do the exact same with him, then you move on to the next guy and do the exact same with him. And it is scary, like really scary, because Chris Williams was actually, and this is another crazy thing, we're having this conversation. They were having a conversation on their podcast recently about there's a book by a guy, I can't remember what it's called, but it's called Billy, or what his name is, but it's called Billy No Mates, and it's about the kind of difficulties that men have with socializing, because men are told that they need to do things by themselves. Women basically congregate into gaggles, and they've all got people or the feminine energy, should I say, not women, but the feminine loves company, the masculine loves direction. So that's why the masculine is out by itself, which is why you find you're out by yourself quite a lot, because you have to employ a lot of masculine energy. And they were talking about a really interesting thing, is that studies show that women, when they talk to each other, stand at exactly 0 degrees face to face with each other. Men stand at 120 degrees to each other, because to look eye to eye in a man's eyes is a challenge and a threat and a preparation for violence, as where for women it's compassion, and it is giving your torso to another to open up your heart chakra and things like that, so that you can be received into the bosom of femininity. But for masculinity, if we look each other dead in the eye, you're about to get knocked out. And then there's also the kind of sexual thing around that as well. It's like, oh, I can't look at a guy for too long because I'll be like, should I kiss him? I'm feeling weird things just now. This is weird. So man, there's so much in there when it comes to confidence. But it has to be dealt with from an emotional, intrinsic level, not just a systematic, professional level.
Mm.
Like, well, exactly what I was saying about the violence and the impotence is that the opposite of confidence is what? Insecurity, anxiety.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of that, which is basically, yeah, emotional impotence, where we will act passive and we will act compassionate and we will act on the feminine, but what we're actually doing is covering up our impotence to challenge. We're covering up our anxiety and this massive discernment we've got around, oh, should I be confident? Should I say yes or no to that person? Should I price it? Should I set my boundaries? Should I sit down and talk to them?
Mm.
So yeah, I think to have that business development, there's, as we've already said, there's loads of pieces to this puzzle. And these conversations are great because you'll probably find out of 10 people, only one or two might actually agree to what they think the few pieces of that puzzle are. But the thing that I really would say is the emotional aspect is where you'd really, really need to start, is with the work on the energies, with the work on yourself, finding out what those challenges are within you, and then allowing that to move through into how you conduct business.
Yeah, it's really powerful, and it's not been really picked up before around looking at the emotional side. And I think that's part of, like, I know going through like my own therapy and stuff, that it's not natural to us to, no one fucking teaches us that stuff today, how to manage your emotions and stuff.
Well, back in the day before culture and electricity, back when we were tribes,
Yeah.
as soon as a boy had hair in his balls, he was thrown out into the woods and told to come back in 7 days. And if he was alive, he was alive. He was now a man.
Mm.
A woman or a young girl, the exact same. Breeding age, very young, cooking age, very young, foraging age, very young. There was a lot of rites of passage and ceremony that we just simply don't have these days.
No.
And back then, those things were instilled into you. You had to look at chieftains. You had to fight your father. You had to fight the next person that was from the next tent or something like that when you hit a certain age. When you were a young female as well, you were intimidated by men. You were treated as adult from very, very young. Men didn't give you an easy life and just say, oh, she's just a little girl, don't go hard on her. It's like, no, you're part of the tribe. You have to do exactly what a 50-year-old woman that's been doing it for 3 generations has been. So we don't have that anymore. It's, all you have to be is old enough to have an iPhone, old enough to drink, and then that's it. That's really the only gauges that we have of how old you are, where you are in life, what you've achieved. We skip out a lot of stuff. We skip a hell of a lot of stuff. And then you get to losers like us who are 35 on a podcast having to figure it
out on a Friday
because we didn't figure it out. Yeah, on a Friday night, because we didn't figure it out 25, 30 years ago like we should have done back in 300 AD when life was good, life was
there'll
simple.
be people listening and resonated, and at least we're trying. That's all I say. Is there an area of life that you want to be more confident in?
Allowing myself to achieve. I think it's a lot to do with my upbringing, where I was brought up, being Scottish, is that it's only been in the past 2 or 3 years that I've really taken the bull by the horns and said, you know what? I deserve to earn 6 figures. I deserve to have a villa here. I deserve to have a life that is on completely my terms. It's taken me, I started working when I was 14, had my first limited company when I was 21. So it's taken me 21 years of being in the professional environment to finally go, I deserve to do better.
Yeah.
That's insane. I have destroyed myself since I was 14 just to make a wage slip at the end of the week. Yeah. No matter what you've given me, I've smashed it. As soon as you put something in front of me, I'll just do it. But it's not because I've been smart or Tony Robbins or Gary Vee. It's because I've been Scottish and I've been told that if I don't work, I'll starve.
Yeah.
That's it. That's where my quote unquote successes came from. which isn't really a success. It's just a successful work ethic. And because my family fractured when I was really young, all I really got to see was violence, alcoholism, abuse, all these different kind of things. But I also saw depression, drug abuse, medical, mental issues. And a lot of it was brought around in an environment where you've got a single parent working 3 jobs. So I didn't learn how to be a good person or even how to be a person. All I learned was that if you're not up at 5 a.m. and then work by 6, then there's something wrong with your life. You need to get home and the fridge needs to be full. The rent needs to be paid. You need to pay your council tax and put £10 in the electricity meter. All of that is on you, kid. And that's literally stayed with me right up to now. And it's actually lockdown that changed it for me. If the powers that be prove to me that everything I built since I was 14 can be taken away like that, then you can be sure as fuck I'm never leaving my desk to make another buck for the rest of my life. That's a resentment, a chip on the shoulder, but also a massive inner confidence. So when it comes to business and things like that, I'm finally sitting here going, do you know what? Nah, I'm going to finally take what I've deserved. I think I owe it to myself to actually start clearing X amount of figures, X amount of lifestyle. I'm not waking up in the morning and worrying about what change I've got in my box next to my bed so I can put diesel in my car just to go to the gym when I'm in my 30s. Like, that's where lockdown had me, man. Yes, maybe I was unprepared for it. Maybe I was stupid and naive, but it's because I was a worker. But I was a worker under my own steam. I wasn't a 9-to-5 guy. I was right, here's the business, here's the job, let's do it, let's smash it. And it's that real naivety of, if you work hard enough, it'll happen. Bullshit. If you work smart enough, it'll happen. I never worked smart. I only worked hard. So now this is where I am, only working smart instead of hard. I'll take my 10 hours a day on the couch watching Netflix. Thank you very much. After closing £5,000 or £6,000 worth of business.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one, right?
It is an interesting one, yeah. And I think that, but you can't bypass it. You do have to invest, commit, energy, everything, and time, and you do have to work hard from the perspectives of creating something. And I think
this is why I'm bankrupt now, because I've spent all of my money on business investments. I used to be bankrupt because I was stupid. Now I'm bankrupt because I'm smart. It's like I can't get a break. I honestly can't get a break.
It will come. Build it and they will come. I'm joking. I hate that line.
I do actually like that one a little bit. I do like that.
I'm mixed.
It's bullshit, but I do like it.
Same as The Secret. I'm very much aligned to that. I'm, the minute I think this, I like it from the fact that I'm positive, but positive to the point of, like, today, I haven't felt great and I'm going to have a shit day. I'm going to be vulnerable and tell people that it's shit. It's tough. And it's, life isn't always easy every freaking week or day. And I think I can't be that positive toxic, but I also don't live my life negative to the point of I'm grateful for what I've had. And actually, if I went today, I've had enough. And I think
1,000%.
Being in the moment, totally. I know we've spoken a lot about this, being in the moment and this idea of not seeking things like next, just actually just realizing what you have. And I know that's been a challenge, and it still will be a challenge, but finding that state's definitely helped bring that. I talk about it a lot, that kind of calmness to my life, which I want more. But we could always tangent off on a different area, especially when I'm talking with you.
Well, you've actually just mentioned a little bit there about this is the interesting thing, is that I can't remember exactly what it was you said, but it made me go, well, the reason you can take your foot off the gas is because of your unyielding inner confidence that you're capable of building and pursuing something. Yeah. So there's an element of get out of jail free cards that you can give yourself in life, which I didn't give myself for fucking 20 years, where you can go, oh, hold on, now I'm working smart. I've got 25 years of education underneath my belt. I've paid the money for the investments. I've got good people around me. I know what I'm doing at my level. And yes, there's another 300 levels to this, but I know enough to be very successful in my own level. So your inner confidence says to you, cool, you've got that, take 5 minutes off. Yeah. Or you've got that, go and explore some emotional development, go for a walk, do some breath works, whatever it happens to be, instead of constantly living in this, yeah, I think my key word for my entire life is probably, or my key phrase has been defense mode.
Yeah.
Like everything has been defense mode just from the way I was brought up and things like this. Now it's developmental mode, which is strange because I started personal development when I was like 26, 27.
Yeah.
And even though that helped my life exponentially, there was still these really ingrained, deep rooted things that I needed to get rid of, like destroying yourself just for a weekly wage. So
That,
yeah, you've just alluded to that about your inner
uh,
confidence gives you that belief that you can take your foot off the gas for 5 minutes because the business is still going to be there for you.
I'm really interested to what say in, I work in schools helping around kind of science of learning and um, revision strategies and helping.
You work with schools.
I do, yeah, helping them
You're
move.
you're in charge of the future of this nation.
I
Oh,
am
nuts.
sometimes for certain workshops where I teach them a bunch of stuff and then yeah, it's slightly different. But yeah,
I teach them a
I
bunch of
do teach,
stuff.
guys. I tell them.
Sounds like they're in safe hands, man.
I am passionate about our younger generations and helping and investing and thinking how we can, because I don't think our education system is great at all. I think that idea of what you've said there, defense mode versus developmental mode, I don't regret such, I wish I'd have found coaching earlier in my years in some ways, but then like anything, it's like I am where I am now because of that. And like you just said, I've got an abundance of this experience, etc., to get me to here. So I kind of then don't think, well, no, I don't regret that. But I do think if we could share anything with people when they're younger, and I guess it's sometimes I'll choose when to use this question, but if you were to talk to little Gus younger and stuff, what would you say in terms of advice centered around confidence?
Confidence.
Yeah.
Fight back. Fight back. My entire childhood, all of my single digits of my teens was nothing but violence, brought up in very, very bad places. And confidence for me didn't exist because I wasn't from a family that did well. I didn't have any groups of friends. I was ganged up on by God knows how many young teenagers and younger men for weeks and months and years of my life, just from moving around from town to town and all this different kind of stuff. So confidence for me back then just did not exist. And it's funny you asked this. The first time I ever experienced confidence in my life, I didn't even know what the word was. I was 15 years old. I think about this regularly. And I'd bought a cream puffer jacket, right, from like a fashion shop that was called D2 back in the day, kind of like a very poor version of Burton's. And it only cost like £14 or something like that. But it was a cream puffer jacket. And it was the first time in my life that I ever walked into school and felt something. And I didn't know what it was. And it took me weeks and weeks. And I was writing a diary when I was a kid as well. And then I finally understood what the word confidence meant. And it took me until I was 15 to experience that.
Yeah.
So if with all of with the inner child work that I've done, a lot of what I went back to tell him, and the important thing about inner child work is remembering that he is actually always there with you. He walks shoulder to shoulder with you through the rest of your life. A lot of people think that inner child work is about going back and leaving the inner child back there and consoling him, but it's not. It's he's with you at all times. And sometimes you're going to have to let the kid take the reins because he deserves it. He's earned it.
Yeah.
And then there's other times that he's going to console you. He's going to console that your inner child will console you as an adult. So confidence, what I would say would actually be fight back. I wish that I put people in hospital when I was younger. I wish that I didn't take the beatings that I did. I wish that I stood up to my father. I wish that I stood up to people in my towns and people at school. I never did any of it because I've always said this about my childhood when I've done the work. I never had my childhood. It just happened and I watched it happen. I was just along for the ride. I never even had a relationship with my mother where I could say, I'm not happy. I think I had a little bit of a breakdown when I was like 12 or 13. And I was screaming in the middle of the street, like, no one ever asks me if I'm okay. And still nobody did, but it didn't really matter. So confidence would actually be for me, yeah, physical. I think everybody should have some type of physical pursuit. I think everybody should be in a position where they need to look other human beings dead in the fucking eye. I think that whether it's weight training, whether it's hiking, any type of physical pursuit that causes you to confront yourself, because obviously my one was being confronted by other people. But my confidence was kind of there ever since I was probably 18, 19, because that's when I left and just went off and did my own thing. Literally just moved to a city, didn't know anybody, got a transfer in the job that I had, and just started building from there. I've literally figured out everything as I've went. So it's a hard one to answer, because if what I say to little Gus when I'm talking to little Gus is, it's not your fault.
Yeah.
That's what I say. And don't worry about it. It's cool. Don't worry about it. Everybody was going through their own shit. Yes, you were forgotten, but now is the time to remember yourself. And yeah, it's a lot of wounded healer as well. For me, I get a lot of resolve through serving others. I think that's a very important admittance that a lot of people need to have, but they don't, because they're so obsessed with positive mental attitude. Oh, I just like to help people. No, you fucking don't. It helps you. Admit it.
We were talking two things today, my cousin and I, because we were talking about therapy and different things. And I said, what I haven't liked about therapy, I've just recently come into the end of a grief recovery specialist program, which is not counseling, not therapy. It's very different. It's more about like unpacking emotions and looking within with that. And, saying, it ain't about saying, oh, give it time. No, it's what you do with the time. Don't keep saying all these crap that's conformed. And I said, the reason I don't like therapy anymore for me is because there was too much around let little Natalie go. And I was like, I'm still Natalie. And I really struggled with this concept. After 3 years, I got to a point of saying, why do you want to let Natalie go? That's confusing with me internally. I'm not getting it. And we built on that today, exactly like you just shared there. And I said, I've had to really unpack some shit the last 3 or 5 months in terms of really understanding my emotions with things, relationships since 26, and leaving a job where I lost all self-identity. I didn't know who I was last year. And it came through that my self-sabotage habits were fitness is one.
Right.
Drink was another one last year, heavily at the end of the year. It was just
Really?
Yeah, I was drinking a lot. I was drinking like a bottle of wine, 3 gins every night, and just a routine. My routine was fitness in the morning.
Jesus Christ. That's a lot of booze. That's a lot of booze now.
Like your little thing. And I'm like, well, I can drink a lot. But I was that unhappy at work. And I was just, then it was work. Same again. Next morning was, up, gym, work, drink, that routine. And then my other self-sabotage habit was helping people. So I volunteered for Shout, which is like a crisis volunteer, like Samaritans, for 18 months. Amazing. But then I just noticed, and that I stick by. I love doing that, and I love giving back in that type of volunteering work. But what I noticed, like yourself, and the form of the coaching, is that we give too much and you just want to help others. And actually what it was when I've really looked at it with the grief stuff, is that I want more good feel. I want to feel good because I'm not feeling good. And that's me having to get a dopamine kick. What I need to fucking do is look at what's the emotions, and what's all I'm doing again is taking it in and pushing it down. And I literally feel like if you took my body, I want my belly to feel like it's empty and it's calm and I can breathe like I'm supposed to breathe my diaphragm, hence the breath work I've been doing, versus I just feel I take everything in and push it and I just can't breathe. That's what I felt in my life, that I'm in corporate and I just can't breathe. And that's been the journey part. And it's exactly key that everybody's doing it the whole time. I saw a podcast on it the other day, actually. I think it was the guy, the Rizzle Kicks, one of the guys in there, just saying that he's just fueled on the dopamine kick.
That's interesting. Fueled on the I'll challenge it. I'll challenge it a little bit though, and I'll say, do you also think that some of it stems from ego?
Yeah,
it stems from masculine ego about being impressed with your own psychological education.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's like this balance of admitting that, or not admitting that we need help, and then what you do is you turn into a wounded healer. Because it helps you fill the gaps that you never got filled for yourself. So you kind of self-soothe by helping others. But then there's also this need for you to gain self-gratification in a certain way by stretching your psychological and professional legs. It just so happens that you're helping other people when you do it. So
Yeah.
this is another reason why I've had to start shutting my mouth when I'm on groups and stuff like that, because even though I have the answers, I realize that half of me having the answers is serving myself, not the other person.
Mm.
Unagi.
I cannot honestly, let me just say something. I cannot believe I'm gonna have to probably share it. I think that's what he says in Friends, isn't it?
That's exactly what he
I've
says
had
in
it on my
Friends.
laptop. Honestly,
Natalie Potts coaching.
I've had it on my browser this week because I saw it something the other day, and then I was like, Unagi, and I was like, I need to do something with that, and I've just left it there. And then you said it. We joke and we say it all the time, oh, it's really interesting you say that. I was having this conversation, but that's what this stuff brings, is that's where I love conversations like this, and you can connect with people on just a different level, and it's
Actually, see an interesting thing about because obviously we're talking about confidence, um, is to some very binary things, and the reason it just popped into my head there is because we're using the word unagi, and the word unagi is something that I use instead of the word of interesting, right? So a great little trick for people where they can instill their own confidence through their vocabulary if they can't exercise confidence as well as they want to. So perfect things like the most common one is, instead of saying sorry all the time, you thank people. Like I was late for our Zoom for our podcast, and I knew that you were livid because it's just I know you. Um, and instead of saying sorry, I said thank you for your patience. So one of the two types of energies you get are a tyrant and an abdicator. And a tyrant, I identify a lot more with a tyrant than I do an abdicator. And I'm the only person that ever goes to the groups that always identifies with the tyrant. And I'm at peace with that. I'm very happy with that. Um, Everybody else identifies with an abdicator. And an abdicator is obviously when you give up a seat of power, like we would say in royalty, you abdicated your throne.
yeah,
So the tyrant kind of punishes other people. And then the abdicator is so passive that they will give up their own power to appease another person.
yeah,
So if you're sitting there thinking about confidence and going, how do I be more confident? You don't have to launch into 19 hours of seminars and courses and books. You can simply write down some key words that you use every single day that are abdicator words, like I'm sorry, please. You just did one before we came on air. You were like, I don't know. And I went, don't ever use the words I don't know, because you're telling yourself you don't know something. Instead, swap the words I don't know for interesting.
yeah,
And then instead of interesting, you can say unagi. So whenever we're having these conversations, and I've had so many people that are loaded genetically in their DNA with anxiety, and every second word out of their mouth is, I don't know, do you want to go to the cinema or whatever? I'm like, what do you mean, whatever? We're either going or we're not. Ask me the question properly. Don't ask me the question with four options and then a get out of jail free card not to choose any of the options either. Because all you're doing is your anxiety is causing you to throw shit at a wall to see what sticks. You don't have a decisive bone in your body. So this is due to a lack of confidence and insecurity. And it's also bred down from our parents, like especially women, they tend to go through families where they watch their mother abdicating all of their power to their father. So then they grow up thinking, oh, I'm supposed to clean. I'm supposed to accept him being an asshole. I'm supposed to just find a guy that comes home to me and the house is ready. All the old school mask femme stuff. It's not necessarily paramount today because culture's shifting, which it needs to do. So yeah, changing these abdicator words like sorry, I don't know, maybe, could we, possibly. Like even with your clients, see if a client's late on a payment, I don't ask them for it. I tell them to pay it before the end of the day. But I
yeah,
don't do it as an asshole. I message them and I'll say, let's get your payment settled before the end of the day.
yeah,
That's it. My only compassionate word in there is let's, because that's suggesting that we're a team doing it together.
yeah,
Right. I don't say, please, can you pay me? I don't leave it out to the ether of chance by saying please and not give you a date and not give you anything definitive. When it comes to you giving people options, the less words, the better. So this is a key with your sales, is that when you're handing over a price, you hand over the price and shut the fuck up. You don't hand over the price and then give them 4 options and then 3 get out of jail free cards and then change the subject quickly before they even answer.
Yeah.
The art of shutting up is a massive internal confidence builder.
Yeah.
And I think that's also, I'm having my own little discovery actually while I'm talking about this. That might be why at the circles, my silence is actually built more of an inner confidence than my speech, because my speech is often anxiety fueled, because I have a need to be validated by what I know and serving other people.
Yeah.
So it's almost an insecure verbal diarrhea.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, when I speak, people listen.
Yeah.
And there's loads of people there's loads of people at the groups that ask me to repeat what I said so they can note it down in their phones. So I know that I'm not talking shit. I do have the inner confidence on that. But it's even opening my mouth in the first place that never really needed to happen.
Yeah.
And the years of childhood of never being received or loved or nourished or soothed and all that kind of shit. Never heard, because I never spoke, because there was too much violence and too many variables for me to actually be heard in the middle of anyway. That's like, it's like trying to sing a song in the middle of a war. It's never going to go down. No one's ever going to hear you. So there's no point. And my silence at the groups actually know the answer to that. But now what you're doing is building the confidence within yourself to know that you know the answer and know that you don't need to state the answer, because you knowing it is a lot more of a grounding, confident belief than you opening your mouth to try and get other people to know you know what you're talking about. And even now in the group, this is being reflected by other men who are coming up to me at the end of the group and saying, Gus, I just love it when I talk and I see you looking at me, because I feel that you're the most connected to me out of everyone. So now I'm even getting more validation. It's kind of bad that this is happening, but I'm now getting more validation for my confidence and support when I'm actually not doing anything. So it's turning into less is more, which is giving me a very fair, compassionate confidence that means I don't need to try and exercise that confidence to other people. Do you know what I'm saying? It's for now, my confidence is coming a lot more internally than being external. And it comes from changing my words, reducing what I'm saying, understanding that I am capable and I am confident, but I don't need to shout about it.
Yeah, I think that what's coming to mind is there that your energy surely is of intent and certainty in what you're saying as well, and what you know.
Say that again, sorry.
Your energy must be that it's intent with certainty in what you're saying as well.
Yeah, 100%. But also now with what I'm talking about with the groups is that my energy comes from never breaking eye contact. My energy now comes from when there's a man across the circle talking about stuff that happened to him when he was a kid. I'm looking him dead in the eye, and within a few seconds, I'm fully immersed in what that man is saying. And I'm nodding and I'm following his own emotional direction of how he's delivering things. I'm receiving him more than I've ever received anyone. And it's because I've completely cut out my need to serve, not serve, but my need to resolve, should I say. So it's no longer a calculus of I need to answer your question for a growth perspective. It's now I need to learn how to hold space for that individual, which actually shows them a lot more confidence in talking to me, because everybody else is just kind of looking around the room, or everybody else is looking at the floor and looking at their hands. And I'm like, I'm right here with you, brother. I'm right here with you. So yeah, it's taken me 35 years to, and even now, there's a lot of me that's still full of shit. But even now, it's taken me 35 to actually get a lot of peaceful confidence instead of your traditional confidence of listen to me when I speak. I know what I'm talking about, blah, blah, blah. Now I'm really enjoying silence, actually, funnily enough. And I've never spoke more in my entire life than I have done in the past 2 years. So it's interesting.
Mm.
But yeah, the little take home from that is start changing your words, man.
Yeah.
Start changing your abdicator words
Mm.
for more neutral words, more foot down, line in the sand, boundary
Yeah.
setting words.
Yeah. Yeah. Final question to you. Who's been your best mentor and why?
Never had one.
Is that
That's it.
it?
Yep, never had one. Biggest mentor for me has been, ugh, I couldn't use the word mentor, but just being destroyed by the earth, being destroyed by circumstance, being destroyed by life, having to figure it out. I understand that as a business coach, I should have my own business coach. Totally get that. Yep. And right now, I'm investing massive amounts so that I can be better, I can serve better, I can scale all this good shit that we all want to do as coaches, etc., to be successful. But yeah, honestly, man, never. To a certain extent in my life, I've always been the mentor. That's my wounded healer. That's my experience coming through as support and service and love for the people that are around me. I've always had positions of supervisor and team leaders and all these different things. And now, as an authority in my space, that supporting role is now supercharged, and I absolutely love it because I'm truly noticing people's businesses and therefore their lives as a knock-on effect are totally changing. But yeah, never had a mentor. It's only actually recently now, in the past year and a half, that I've actually found a friend that I truly believe in,
Yeah.
which is Daniel. And he said the exact same to me. He's like, I can't believe I had to wait 35 years to find a man that knows himself enough so that I can trust him.
Yeah.
Up until this point in our lives, it's always been, don't get me wrong, I've had unbelievable earth moving loves, and I've had loves where the person I've been with truly, hand on my heart, to this day, 10, 15 years later, is still the best friend that I've ever had.
Yeah.
And there's still an element of regret around the loss in that relationship. But when it comes to friend circles and stuff like that, I've got my two best friends, my OGs, who are both women, which is very important because I love their nature. I love everything that they stand for, and they've been with me through a lot in my life. But yeah, now that I'm 35, I've finally found a male that I'm like, brother, brother, would trust me with their child. I would trust them with my life, no matter what it is. And it's not because there's been some type of initiation where they've proven themselves. It's because when you get to a level of awareness of yourself in life, you then notice a lot more of that in other people. And when I look in the eyes of who my best friends are now, I'm like, fuck, that's some unbeatable DNA in those people. Like, cannot believe these people are even on the planet. So yeah, long story short, never had a mentor. Pretty much done it all. Just done it all off my accent and good looks.
Where can people connect with you?
Best place to get me would be Instagram at RGL Filmhouse.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Well, what pretty much it after an hour and 10 minutes. I knew it would be a golden one there.
I hope that it's been fun, man. This has been an awesome conversation. And I did say before, I was like, I'm always, I don't get nervous with things, but I get I get a touch of apprehension because I've been in a lot of podcasts and I've got like another two or three over the next month. And I always have to say to people, do you want me on your podcast?
Yeah.
Please go and listen to other ones, because
Yeah.
I'm conscious that, you know, we consume podcasts because it's quote unquote developmental material.
Yeah.
So, and I also understand that the nature of a podcast nowadays, more often than not, is just to have a conversation, let it take whatever path it wants, and the people listening are smart enough to take their own golden nuggets from it. But yeah, it's probably my insecurity. I'm still always conscious that there must be a take home for it to be worth an hour and a half, 2 hours of somebody's time. So yeah, to all you scamps listening, I hope you've been able to have some nice take homes.
For sure. And
confidence and shit.
I did listen to your podcast before. I did a 3-hour commute one way, and your voice was the whole journey.
Oh, what more do you want? What more do you want?
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Being Confident from Within. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and it inspired you in trusting no matter what happens in any particular situation, you'll be able to handle it and learn from the outcome. I really love hearing from you, so please leave a review and let me know which part of the episode resonated with you the most. Have an amazing day.